We have theme music. We do. You guys are accustomed to seeing me in a very different role, so I'm flipping it on you, okay? Um, my name is Renee Robinson. I'm the industry programmer here at TIFF, and today I get to moderate one of these amazing panels, and I'm very excited about doing this. I like to. It's fun. So today we're actually going to be speaking to a panel of experts about the longest title in the history of titles. What's up with all these multimedia corporations investing in content? Exclamation sign, question mark, exclamation sign, question mark. Because this is a big deal. And I think one of the things that we've been seeing and what we have been talking about all day is the intersections that happen in the industry now as content, entertainment, technology, investment, they're all becoming more and more intertwined with each other in very, very particular relationships that are vital at the stage of the industry that we're at in this content ecosystem. And we've seen Facebook and Oculus, we've seen Disney and Maker Studios, we've seen Amazon and Twitch, most recently A&E and Vice. And the idea is that these are the relationships that are driving the content ecosystem. And we want to know, this panel is going to tell us why. Why is it that this is all happening? Why is it happening now? Why is it happening with these companies? And what do we expect the impact of that to be for the content, for the technology, for the audience? That's what we're going to talk about today. And what I will do first is I'm going to just ask each presenter to introduce themselves. Just a few lines about who you are and why you're on stage with us today, starting with Cole.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Glad you could make it. And we're going to try and keep you awake after lunch. I realise this is, looking at the timing of this panel. I'm the founder and CEO of IMDb. IMDb is an information service which has information on every film, every TV show, all the way from early 1890s to things that are coming out in 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time, all beautifully organised for our 190 million monthly users. We have a popular app which has been downloaded over 100 million times, and if you want to know anything about entertainment, the people who make it, all of the background information, IMDb's a place to come. We also operate a subscription service called IMDb Pro, which is aimed at people in the entertainment industry, which has extra information. Is that long enough?
No, that's perfect. And Cole, actually, if you ever need a movie quote, Cole pretty much knows the script for every movie ever made.
or I know a website that does.
Thanks, Cole. Mark.
I'm Mark Hofstetter. I'm the head of film for the crowdfunding platform Indiegogo. Indiegogo was the original crowdfunding platform we launched at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2008. In the last roughly 6 years, we've seen over 200,000 projects funded from 224 countries and territories around the world. Most recently, announced here at the festival, Indiegogo pacted with the CFC to be their exclusive crowdfunding platform, and that's me.
Thanks, Mark. Marnie.
Hi, I'm Marnie Schulman. I'm the head of content and programming for a new subscription on-demand service called Show Me. Some of you may have heard about it. We just announced the Loch Ness Monster is real. For you Torontonians, will know what that reference means. We just announced on August 26th, we're going to be launching this November. And basically, we are an SVOD service that brings together the best, most popular past seasons and some current seasons of movies and television, obviously television episodic. And we are funded by Rogers Media and Shaw Media, but we operate independently. That's me.
So I'm Duncan Stewart. I'm the Director of Research for Technology, Media, and Telecommunications at Deloitte Canada. I co-author a global product called TMT Predictions, where we make predictions about tech, media, and telecom. And I sort of feel like I don't actually do anything to do with media or content. I don't buy, I don't sell. So think of me as like this is a conference on Amazonian parrots. And there are all the parrot experts here. And I know nothing about parrots, wouldn't know a parrot if it bit me. But I can talk a little bit about rainfall and temperatures, the ecosystem around multimedia and content. So that's kind of my perspective.
Good afternoon. My name is Abby Kwong Man Wei, and I'm in Hong Kong, and I'm not working in Beijing now. My company the name is Wonder Media Group, and I'm as the head of the development. I'm a scriptwriter and director and a producer for quite a lot of years. And now I'm in charge of the development department, so every project come to Wonder, I have to screen it first and then pass it to the greenlight committee. And our company doing, only film company, not the whole group, okay? Our film company is doing production and distribution and so. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And for those of you who are not familiar, Wanda is a very large company who bought AMC. So, and definitely, and I think there's also interest now in developing further properties in North America. So, very, very pleased to have you join us. I know you were part of Asian Film Summit yesterday.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Great. So, welcome to our panelists. I wanted to start off by just asking Duncan if he could set the stage for us. Duncan is one of those people who knows everything about everything. So maybe you can lead us off by letting us know why are we at this stage right now? What is it about the business and the creative climate that has created that is allowing these relationships to percolate?
Right, so one of the things that we talk about as part of Deloitte Predictions is all kinds of topics, and I kind of had to come up with what would be the 3 things that maybe you don't know, because there's stuff out there like, do you know that crowdfunding is really important when funding Oh, we've got somebody here to talk about that. This over-the-top SVOD stuff, I can let you take that one. I've written about that in the past, so what's kind of new? Hang on, where'd my slides go? Hello, slide. Okay, let's start off with this one. We all remember Twitch got bought, what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago? Oh my goodness, Twitch was seen 15 billion minutes of video by Twitch in the month of July alone, from 50 million users. Wow, 15 billion minutes, that's enormous. In the United States, of traditional TV, people over the age of 2 watch 33 hours, 53 minutes of TV per week, which when you average it over the course of a day means they watch, here's a number for you, drop this at your next cocktail party, 1 million minutes a second. Every second of every hour of every day of the year, they watch 1 million minutes, which means that incredibly impressive 15 billion minutes for Twitch of a video seen is the equivalent of a little under 5 hours of US TV. I want to put that in context. So when we talk about short form, when we talk about digital media, when we talk about Psy and Gangnam Style and PewDiePie and all this stuff, you really got to fit it to the juggernaut that is traditional broadcast, and that's just the US. Global market's about 5x the US number, 5 to 6x. So just, you can multiply them all. So I wanted just to get that out there, just to kind of size it. I want to talk about, you probably all saw the Washington Post article, TV's for old people. Did anybody else here think that applied to them, or is that just me? I just turned 50 this summer, so. Here's the data from Nielsen. From Q4 2011 to Q4 2013, direct seasonal year over year. TV plus time shifted in the United States for L2 Plus is actually up a snick, 2.2%. 18 to 24-year-olds fell 11. It fell double digits in 24 months. Kids, for years, have always watched a little less TV. It is beginning to drop, and if you know your calculus, the second derivative is accelerating. It is beginning to drop faster and at an accelerating pace over time. How do you reach young people? How do you reach older people with money? One of the other big problems is the demographics of TV are such that average TV is up. Average TV of people with money and high education is down almost as bad as the 11%. The last thing I wanted to close off on is this one, phablets. Who here in the room has a phone with a screen bigger than 5 inches? 2, 3 of us? I wrote a prediction at the start of the year that they would be 25% of global smartphone markets. It was 24 in Q1. Anybody see the Apple announcement yesterday and the 5.5-inch phone? The reason I'm waving my arm about this one is this is a 6.3, happens to be a Samsung. Nobody watches video of any length, really, on 4-inch phones. It's just tiny, tiny, minutes per month. Get it to 5, get it to 5.5, get it to 6.3, and people watch video, but they're not watching 2-hour movies. They're watching short-form content over the internet. So I think that perfect storm just of people having mobile devices and not consuming 2 hours, not an hour, not even 24 minutes, but 2.5 minutes means that, to go back to my first slide, there's going to be a real shift towards that short-form, digital, largely, content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and these are amazing stats. It's just, I didn't even know what a phablet was, to be honest. Thank you. Did anybody else know what a phablet was? Oh my goodness. I just thought it was like a huge phone. But I think this also, and maybe Marnie, that you could jump in here, because this is a full indication of that relationship between the technology and the content company. Like, how do those partnerships happen? Where do they come from?
It's an interesting point that you made. There is a perfect storm that's happening, and I will answer your question in 1 second. I just want to make this one point, because what I find quite fascinating is that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everybody talked about the fact that video rotted your brain. You shouldn't spend a lot of hours watching video. You shouldn't spend a lot of hours watching TV. As a mom, I can tell you that was sort of the. But a couple things happened. Technology evolved, content evolved, access evolved, walls broke down, and suddenly, the content that's available directly to consumers is such a higher quality. And I don't know what came first. The advancement of technology allowed for people of every ilk and every sort who had a story to tell to make a really high quality piece of content and deliver it directly to the consumers that wanted to watch it. So I know that's not exactly the question that you asked, but I think it's actually a really important point. I come from the world of content. I mean, I've been head down for the last 3 years building this service and buying content and sourcing content and finding content. And I come from the world where, ultimately I believe that content is king. But I think that we can't do the things that we're doing today, and we can't create these partnerships and these mergers without the advancement of technology. And it's just this continuous sort of symbiotic relationship that continues to happen.
Could I interrupt?
Yes,
could I actually
please.
interrupt a question from the panel to the panel? Just as someone who's not, I'm not based in Canada, in case you couldn't tell from the accent. Could you tell us a little bit about what Show Me is? Is it purely on home TVs? Is it purely on devices? What's the mix between if it's both?
It's cross-platform.
Right,
It's completely cross-platform. It's hybrid in the sense that because we are owned by Rogers Media and Shaw Media, we will also be available on a set-top box.
Right. Okay.
So, it's kind of hybrid in that regard, but it's over the top in the sense that it'll be available on any platform that our red competitor might be available on.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Your red competitor?
Yes. We don't speak that name.
I actually want to ask Avi, because this is we're seeing a lot of these relationships happening internationally as well. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about content and digital platforms and how they are. How does that work in China?
Maybe I have to say something about the background in China first, because first of all, China is so big, and the population is so huge. And the internet development is actually just the past a few years. I mean, actually, they start the internet a little bit late than the Western country. But on the other hand, when the 3G come, China is the place, 3G system is totally well developed, better than other country. So the influence of internet in China is much, much more bigger than any other country. So the past 2 or 3 years, the influence of internet is much more important than TV even. But at the same time, the audience is totally different. For the TV program, mainly is maybe the mother and the housewives, so and so, but it is still a huge population, right? Because the base is too huge, so it's still a big number. On the internet is for the young guys, and we are my company and myself is making movie, and the audience is very young. The people come to the cinema is very young. So what happened on internet totally influenced what happened on the cinema. So start from this year, actually, we have a few movie and it's released already 2 or 3, but not produced by my company, okay, by some other people. The content is from internet. One is an internet animation. One is microfilm. Is that in this way because it's a film, but in around 10 minutes or 15 minutes, something like that. And there's my company as a movie just started shooting yesterday, and the content is from TV. It's not TV. It's an internet guest show. It's not guest show. Something like Mr. Bean. I would say the Chinese style Mr. Bean, and is going to make a feature film and start shooting yesterday already. And so this kind of content will be much more and more. And we are going, and actually at the beginning of next year, we are going to release an animation, a cartoon. It also is released on internet only. And of course, all the content on internet is because it's up till now, there's no censorship yet. That's why some content is a little bit yellows, a little bit violent, a little bit, you never see or any other Chinese movie you can find the content. But of course, after if you put it into the movie, then no more that kind of thing. Will be quite strict to the regulation. But so this is a big trend, but no one know will it have success or not, because for the past 2 movies, one animation and one human feature movie, the box office is quite good, but not good as what we imagine. So no one know whether it will be a big trend, because for the past few years, a star be a director, be a new director, and then they get a great success. 1, 2, 3, almost 3 to 4 movies already. This is a big trend in China. But internet content become feature film content. Will it be success? No one know. We have to see. But we all believe it will work. So many people try to hunt for this kind of content, and this content owner, they understand very well. So they are not going to just sell the content to us, but work with us, and so they start their film department at the same time. So that's why we found that the most important internet company, platform company, they established their own movie company for just past 2 or 3 months. They established their department already. That's what's happening in China. Yeah.
Can I again ask another question?
Yeah.
If that's all right. Is that aimed at people just in China, or are you aiming to reach worldwide?
Oh.
Given that if it's on the internet, because that's one of the great things, it enables worldwide access.
Actually, Chinese movie, Chinese-speaking language movie, I don't think they can focus on the whole world at this moment.
Right.
So we are focused on domestic market, and when you see that kind of movie, you don't understand what they are meaning. You totally what does it happen?
I don't know. Chinese Mr. Bean sounds good to me.
I would want to watch that.
Because I tell you, I'm in Hong Kong. But even though Hong Kong people, they don't understand what's happening in China. Right. It's totally different culture. It's totally
like
different.
Ontario and Quebec.
Yeah. Because some joke, they make fun of the joke, we don't understand what does it mean. So because mainly, most of the content on the internet is something about dialogue, not visual. Most of them is about dialogue. So if you don't understand the background, the culture, you don't understand what does it mean. You don't feel funny. For example, I produced a movie 2 years ago called named The Lost in Thailand. It's the highest box office in China, but not work all over the Southeast Asia, even though in Thailand, because it's shooting in Thailand, but no one want to see the movie.
Duncan, did you? No? Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think there's probably something to talk about with respect to the trends that we're seeing between movies and television, and what tends to drive on digital platforms, at least what I'm seeing in Canada, and I'd be curious to know if you sort of see North American statistics the same way. On digital platforms, movies always have a halo effect. They create an entree into a service like a Show Me, or the other one. But what tends to keep, so that will bring people through the door, and then will always be incredibly important. But at least what I'm seeing is, and I think it speaks to what you were talking about in terms of content becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. At least today, what I'm seeing, what drives people to stay with the service and keep coming back to the service is actually the episodic television. And I don't know if it has to, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I don't know if it has to do with length or if it has to do with bingeability, and that's, you can sink your teeth into like 6, 7, 8 episodes.
So one of the things, is this on? Is my voice coming out of speakers? I can't. So one of the things, we do have good global data on this through a technology called deep packet inspection, which looks at the percentage of traffic in a given area. We have some good data on Canada and North America, very good. We're starting to get some on the UK and Ireland, and the Nordics are just beginning to creep up. And then with the launch of an unnamed Netflix in 7 more European companies, we'll get more. What's quite interesting is there are a couple of very important factors. The first of which is Netflix specifically started out as being movies.
Only, yeah.
Over 60% of their content is now TV. Episodic TV, often binged, but not always. And that's really important. That's a surprise to, I think, most of us. How is that consumed? And there's a massive delta. In North America, in prime time, on weekdays, 33.5% of all the bits on the internet are Netflix. I don't mean over-the-top TV. 34% are that one company. Real-time entertainment is 62%. Going, by a Deloitte estimate, we'll be publishing this in January, going to somewhere in the 80s to 90s. But that's landline. On your wireless device, video is a very large percentage of traffic, but long form and even television length video is much, much smaller, 1/10 the size. YouTube, on the other hand, much, much larger.
Right.
Snackable video on small devices, longer form video on landline, and that exact trend has been borne out in every geography as it rolls out. So this is almost at the point where you could say that's like a law of gravity kind of thing.
I just want to applaud you for the amount of statistics that you've memorized.
Sorry, what I do for a living.
How many of them are true, though?
But I have to say something, because in China it's a little bit different, the Chinese audience, especially the young guy, they will see a feature film, no matter 2 hours or 3 hours, on the phone. They will do that. And even though a TV program, they would rather see the TV program on their phone and through internet more than just the TV time. It's very strange in China.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my point. I think it's more to do with bandwidth than anything else. As 4G networks, as things are more interconnected, I think we're going to see the same thing we'll see in China, and just people. Yeah, it's more. Damn it, this thing won't play for more than 20 minutes.
Maybe everybody in China has a phablet.
It's over 50% of phones in China.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and it's also, I mean, what we're seeing on Indiegogo is very much skewed by demographics. We briefly mentioned YouTube, and some of the most funded projects on Indiegogo have been born on YouTube. A perfect example is a company called, it's a filmmaker collective out of Austin, Texas, in the States, called Rooster Teeth. For about a decade, they were building an online audience. They actually have their own MCN, their own multi-channel network. They're not associated with Maker. They're not associated with Fullscreen or any of those companies. They have their own company. They even have their own convention called RTX around July 4th back in the States every year. And for 10 years, they were cultivating their audience. And when the time came to make their first feature film, they came to Indiegogo, and they raised $2.48 million in a 30-day time frame. And quite honestly, if they had kept on going beyond 30 days, I would have guaranteed you they would have raised even more. And so we're actually seeing, going back to the topic of this panel, Geek and Sundry, they produced a show called Tabletop. It's a web series starring Will Wheaton, the actor and sort of geek icon, and it was produced by another YouTube celebrity named Felicia Day. They raised $1.4 million for a third season of their series, again, for a web series. And then, cut to a few months later, they were bought out by Legendary Digital. Legendary, who also produced Batman on the feature and Godzilla on the feature side, bought them out. Freddie Wong, who did the third season of his video game High School. Again, these are all YouTubers. He locked into a deal with Lionsgate, where his company Rocket Jump is going to produce content for them exclusively. And also there on sort of on a different side of content, there is a YouTube channel called The Young Turks. It's a sort of a a different medium of news broadcasting done online. And they were recently acquired, they had received $4 million in investment. Previously, they had run an Indiegogo and raised over $400,000. And so what we're really seeing is where in the YouTube community through Google Analytics, you're able to see all that data. Who is your audience? Where are they coming from? How long are they watching? What are they watching? And all this information, that information, of course, is incredibly valuable to these larger media companies, where A&E is investing in Vice, or any of these things that we're seeing on a really a daily basis at this point. That data just goes so far and is so wide-reaching, and that's why again, those YouTubers, because they're tied to that technology, they're the ones that we're seeing on our end being acquired or invested in a much larger and quicker way.
And how much of that is movie versus TV web series? What's your breakdown?
I mean,
Maybe we should
sorry. Well, I mean, for example, it's sort of a bit of across the board. A lot of them originally started off doing web series content, so short form content, like Video Game High School is short form. It's originally created in 10-minute intervals, and obviously it changes, I think, from season to season. It's now like 15 or 17 minutes, but overall they're meant to be watched in chunks. But you can string them all together and watch them, and they are appearing on other platforms that they are being viewed as full feature films. But Rooster Teeth, they're shooting now their feature film, so it will be a long form content.
Well, Abby said earlier that other content is jealous of internet content. Is that the case? I mean, is the money is investment coming to, and this is for any of you actually, is investment coming more towards digital or internet-based content than it is as opposed to traditional film content? What's the breakdown there? Should regular content still be jealous of internet content?
Is there any difference these days? I think is actually the bigger question. I mean, the technology's out there to create professionally looking content that, well, because it is professional, more and more people can make more and more content, and so where's the boundary between something that you would consider traditional content and internet only content these days?
I think you also have to look at the way that some digital platforms are commissioning content is very different than the traditional sort of studio system where you go through the pilot season and you get notes from 17 different executives and maybe something goes to the next stage and maybe it doesn't. I mean, a company like a Netflix basically does their research, they get their data, they decide what is going to work for their base, and they walk over to David Fincher and say, here's your money, go, bring us, 12 episodes. And to me, that begets quality. That also begets, big names, big stars, big stories, to like, it sort of feeds that cycle, right? Why would I go to a traditional system that may or may not, over the next 3 years, get my project going, when there's almost like a faster route to get your stories told?
There's a level of trust there, and that's what we're seeing, through Indiegogo, is that, there's no, if you contribute your $15 or $20 to see a feature film by your preferred artist or actor or director, there's no creative input that you're giving. I mean, sure, you can say something in the comments section, and maybe they'll take it. But you're trusting them. You've believed in them. You've followed them for years or beyond, and you're saying, "I believe in you. Go off and do what you're going to do outside the system." And as you just were saying, it's when you let those break those shackles that we're seeing a level of innovation creatively that we haven't seen in decades, and we're not going back.
Or a lot of the creativity is in TV. Then is that what we're saying?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
No?
so.
Okay,
I think that
Just checking.
No, I think it goes both ways. But I think that it's going back just to the feature side. I think it's a little bit slower just because, again, so the ability to just quickly consume it. But I don't think it's going to be one way or the other.
No, agreed.
So let's go back into sort of the past. When Netflix first got into the business, they were a CD company, and they went out and they decided to go streaming, and they were like a vacuum cleaner. They bought everything. They bought the rights to absolutely everything they possibly could.
Yep.
As they shifted, algorithms became more important and TV became more important. Netflix doesn't want to kill CBS or NBC or Fox. Netflix wants to kill PBS and CBC and the BBC. They are becoming the high-quality scripted comedy and but they but even of the movies they are buying, of the shows they are commissioning, and of the shows they're willing to go deep into the pocketbook for, that's all a specific category of entertainment. For live traditional television, it's sports. It's the only thing that really works that well. Are we seeing, and Marnie, I'm throwing this, I think, to you, and maybe to Call, and possibly Abby, I'm not sure. Is this the topic we're dealing with here? Why is everybody investing in content? Is it true? Are they really investing in all content? Will all forms of content become worth more and more money? Or is it only 2 or 3 categories that are going to be heavily invested in, either long or short form?
I think it's a good question. I mean, I think it really depends on the platform and the company that's investing. You look at, it's not just traditional entertainment or traditional television, right? You look at like brands. I mean, Dick's Sporting Goods, tiny little mom pa, sporting goods company in Midwestern U.S. basically could have spent money investing in traditional brand sale to get their message across. Or they could do what they did, which is partner with somebody like an ESPN and do documentaries about Hell Week, Football Hell Week, where they are not part of it at all. It's not product placement. It's, you know what I mean? So I think there's opportunities there for that kind of a platform, but I think there's also opportunities for the type of storytelling that drives, a more traditional entertainment platform. And I think kind of the world's our oyster right now. I think we have opportunities across the board. I mean, I know that in my world, I'm always looking for unique forms of content. I don't care if they come in a package of 120 minutes. I don't care if they come, obviously I prefer multi-season just because you get a bigger bang for your buck, but I don't care if it's a feature. I don't care if it's television. I don't care if it started on web. I don't care where it started, as long as it's great storytelling and great content that I know my customers want to see.
And I think that also, like, a perfect example of how the size of the content isn't. I think it's somewhat immaterial. In the States, and I apologize, I don't know if it's here as well in Canada. On the Cartoon Network, there's Adult Swim, and so they have the series Robot Chicken. Robot Chicken, they're 10.
Amazing.
Yeah, but they're 10-minute episodes. They're 10-minute episodes, and a lot of their content actually in the evening is short form content. But Robot Chicken is one of the and to Seth Green's the creator to his credit, they've been doing that show probably for better part of a decade, and they're getting rich off of it. That He's built an empire based off these 10-minute videos, or 10-minute episodes that took action figures and just animated them in jokey, funny ways, and now he's his own brand.
Yeah, and I think you got to take that. Sorry,
Yeah.
Paul. I think you got to take that a step further and say that in those 11-minute episodes, each segment is, 30 seconds, and it speaks to. I hate to say it, and I can say it because I am ADD, but it actually speaks to that kind of ADD mentality, the attention span of an 18 or 19-year-old who's watching it. I don't mean that in a mean way at all.
Yeah, I mean, well, my position on this is always that every film, every show has an audience. Absolutely, No, you'd be surprised. And so one of the things, bringing it back to kind of like the subjects of the panel, is that technology enables the audience to be connected to the makers. And that's the thing. It's no longer a set of gatekeepers in a stuffy office somewhere. The tools are there for people to make great pieces of content of whatever length. The funding's there in different ways, and then the delivery mechanisms are growing better and stronger all the time. And one of the things that that we find at IMDb is kind of we've got this great opportunity to help connect those audiences, because you see a little bit of a web series there, or a little bit of a short there, and it's like, what else did they do? What's like this? Where can I find that? And that for us is tremendously satisfying to know that we're sharing that passion and that love for film and entertainment content with an audience, and it's the technology that's enabling that and connecting all of those people who were never had a critical mass in your small town to see a movie about this or a show about that. But now when you take one person in a small town there, one person in a small town there, one person in a small town there, and then all of a sudden you've got a big enough audience to generate the income that you need to produce the shows.
Well, and does this have anything to do with the reasoning behind why companies are investing in entertainment? Because the value of entertainment is the fact that you have a ready audience that now becomes your database at a later point in time for any other kind of engagement. I'm really curious, like, why is money coming to content? Why is money coming to entertainment?
I think that entertainment is sexy. I think that entertainment is universal, and I think that companies invest in entertainment because entertainment returns that investment.
What is the return? Like, what would you say is a company? They're gonna not a real estate company or something like that, but just a company that is not necessarily a part of the entertainment ecosystem decides to become involved, whether commissioning its own content
Facebook.
or.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I think Facebook is traditionally not. When it was founded, it was not a content company, but they acquired Instagram, which is in its own way breeding content. They acquired Oculus, which is obviously going to start breeding content. And I think that Microsoft, when they started doing Xbox, and they recently shut it down, but they were going to do their Xbox Studios, where they were going to do their own online content. And PlayStation, I think, is also starting to do the same thing. It's just, well, of course, video games, I guess, are content. But the idea is that I think that people will always continue to go to TV feature film and digital content because it's escapism. And when we go back 100 plus years and we look at when movies started, and then was it now the math is 60 plus years when TV started. There's a reason they didn't go away. People feared them at the time. Oh, this is just a fad. It's I think, as we can see, it's far from anything but. Yeah.
In China, I do think that your question is about why investment go to entertainment, right?
Right.
In China, I do think in this way. 2 point. Point one, because all entertainment is reported by communication. The broadcast, newspaper, so and so. So everyone think that it's very easy to earn money. Point one. So that's why they want to earn money too. Point two. Many people in China is very rich now, but no one know. They want to famous. They want to be famous. That's the answer.
That's great. I do want to go to a question shortly, but I would actually love to hear from each of you. Do you consider yourselves, and maybe Duncan would be the exception, but do you consider yourselves a technology company or a content company, and why or why not?
Are we doing it this way? Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure. Totally.
Yeah, so our view is definitely IMDb is definitely a technology company. When faced with an interesting problem to solve on behalf of our customers, we start with a technological solution, and we've built up a huge database of information on films, TV shows from around the world. Thanks largely to
your level of detail astounds me. On the side,
okay, all right. Not me personally.
No, it's a compliment.
All right.
But actually, I
good.
know you're populating
Yes.
every bit of information on your site
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We didn't want to be we didn't want to be gatekeepers of what content is in there. And it's interesting over the years. Traditionally, people, when we started to cover online content, at first people were like, "But this is movies and TV. Why are you, for want of a better term, this is their words, not mine, polluting the database?" And we're kind of like, no, we're about connecting the people who make engaging content with their audience. And so there's, one of the beauties is there's room for the, 2 million plus titles that we have on there. But anyway, to answer your question specifically, technology that then generates content more efficiently.
And you're celebrating your 25th anniversary.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, so IMDb's been published on the internet for 25 years next year.
Cole also had one of the very first email addresses ever in the history of email addresses.
Yeah, so I have an email address since 1985.
Is Indiegogo technology or content?
I guess it depends on which division you're looking at. So the company is based in San Francisco. It's in Silicon Valley.
So technology then.
It's a .com. But heading up their film division, I coming from a traditional film background, though actually I came by way of a bridge of digital content. I actually view us as a content generator. And I think that as the company evolves, as Indiegogo Film specifically within the larger company evolves, we will be a content company. I'm not saying that we're going to go off and produce our own, but our interaction, we're involved with the financing. There are elements we have partners who work with distribution. So I would say we're heading that way.
If you were to produce your own, what would that look like?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't say that we. I did. Let me make it clear. I did not say that we were. And that's a good question. I think that's again, having come from a traditional background at the beginning, I think that's something that as every company evolves, who knows what will happen in a few years from now.
I think that Show Me is definitely both. It's born from two companies that are both. Certainly Rogers and Shaw Media are telco companies. Rogers and Shaw Communications are telco companies, and then Rogers and Shaw Media are content companies. But we've really tried to kind of make our own way and create our own vision and voice. And one of the things that I think really makes us a hybrid is that, of course, yes, I come from also a traditional content background. Been a broadcaster and producer for 20 years. And so this was all pretty new to me. But just the digital delivery, the UI, the incredible sort of user experience is all rooted in technology, as is, analytics, algorithms, recommendations, all of that stuff is rooted in technology. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to bring back is actually a little bit of humanity. So one of our differentiators, as an example, is this notion of human curation. So yeah, it's really important that we utilize the technology that's in front of us in terms of making algorithmic recommendations or understanding what you watch or what you don't watch to be able to, recommend forward. But you also can't really look at your TV and say, I feel like crying tonight. What should I watch? So you kind of take the humanity that comes from producing content, and we try to bring that into sort of a perfect balance of technology and people. So I really do think that we're both.
I actually do have an answer for this. For years, Deloitte produced technology, media, and telecommunications, TMT predictions. They were 3 separate bound reports. We can't do that anymore. Not only can we not figure out which category a prediction fits in, our audience is no longer siloed like that. There is almost nobody in the world who says, I only want to see your telecom or your media or your tech predictions.
For myself, I joined the industry start from 1985, and I'm producing and creating content. And I think my company also a content company, and I see no way about technology. Yeah.
You're definitely a content company. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have a few minutes for questions. So just if you raise your hand and a microphone will come to you. yeah, of course.
Well done. Hi, the question is for the panel. Would metadata and the consumer behavior is the reason that big corporations putting money for getting content, and not necessarily the content itself and selling the content itself? It is the behavior and all the metadata that they are collecting is, I don't want to say more valuable, but for their purpose is extremely valuable.
It makes investments more sound, perhaps, is one way to look at that. So before, you'd maybe do some test screenings, that kind of thing. One of the things now, and I guess we haven't mentioned it up to this point, but IMDb's actually been owned by Amazon since 1998. So we're a subsidiary of Amazon, and the whole Amazon's approach to TV pilots is to commission a single pilot, show it to the audience, and then see, how is the actual real audience going to react to that? What are they, what are the repeat viewing rates? Who's watching so far through, and that kind of thing. And then that's what then drives which go through to an actual season. So it's more about making a more sound investment. So the more data, as we all know, the more data you have the more accurate data you have when you're making an investment, the more sure you can be of the outcome. So that's just my opinion on that.
This is me not being Deloitte. This is me being a former financial analyst. The valuations being paid for this content by companies, if we took the traditional metrics for a cable company or what is Rogers Media valued at on a price to EBITDA basis, you can't get there for something like Twitch. Therefore, logically, the metadata must be what is the premium for. So I think they're still getting an audience and so forth, but how do you justify those premia would be the metadata.
Yeah, question?
Thank you to everyone for such a great discussion about the content, the technology, and the development trends that we're seeing. I'm curious what you think about the revenue models and where they're going. Right now we seem to still be sort of based on either a public broadcast, which is sort of free with advertising supplementing, or the HBO model from the 1980s, which is pay-per-view subscription. Where do you see revenue models changing and developing?
I feel like that might be a Duncan question.
We're launching predictions on January 13th. And, okay, first of all, there's no cord cutting. Cord cutting in Canada was 0.07% last year. US was 0.2. Ad loads are still strong, traditional. Film, we Toronto International, what festival again? Cinema attendance it's not going up that much, but on a dollar basis, it's increasing slightly. There is an interesting shift which we will see, and I sort of touched on it already. People are still watching TV, traditional TV, but the ones doing so tend to be poorer, tend to be older, tend to be less well educated, and tend to be male. Which is why, for the first time in history, with the US economy growing 2, 3, 4%, upfronts were actually down 5% this year in an economically strong year. So the ads don't go away, but it's probably a ongoing shift, and certainly for the most desirable demographics, away from ad-supported, probably more towards subscription.
Yeah, I'm just really one quick comment, and I was speaking earlier about YouTubers and their demographics. I think you mentioned 0.2% cord cutting in the United States, but I'm curious to know as certain this sounds so terrible, but as certain demographics, older demographics die off, and other demographics grow into sort of what is sort of the key demographics, 18 to 24 and beyond. 18 to 36. What do those numbers look like? How many of them are not? How many of them have a cord?
In China, nothing changed. And the revenue from feature film actually is increasing, so not yet changed now. But many people think that it will be changed, especially the revenue from internet. They believe it will totally different from what happened now, but not yet.
Yeah, question at the back.
Hi, I'm CEO at Filmocrats. I have a question for Indiegogo. Are you guys thinking about online streaming the contents that's spinning out of your platform? Because we all know that you guys are in the content incubator, right? So basically, you produce content, but is it going to be a distribution platform?
Right now what we have are a number of key partners that we work with, and they're the ones who stream the content, and that's going to become more and more streamlined. No pun intended. But we work with companies like Vimeo, and there are other online distributors like VHX, which is a sort of a DIY service, and then there's a new company called Fandor. And so by working with those companies, we help facilitate the relationship between our filmmakers and distribution.
Sure. By the way, our website just launched yesterday midnight.
Congrats.
So, yeah, filmocrats.com. Go check it out. Thank you.
Just to drop in there, though. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the end customer, all they really care about is when they press the button, does the thing play?
And we make it very easy, by the way.
Yeah. Does it play in an easy way? And I think there's a lot of there's a lot of discussion about kind of like different competitors and different models of distributing. But at the end of the day, you just want as a customer to say, I want to watch this now. Bink.
I totally agree. Thank you.
Can it start now? And we're at this kind of. I think we're probably at this stage in the the kind of like the equivalent of the the start of the last century with the automobile industry, where everyone's making different things in different ways and things like that. And really, people wanted to get from A to B efficiently. And eventually, the car companies discovered that. And it's the same with this. All of these different things. Can I watch this content now? That's certainly, as an audience member, that's what I care about.
Can I ask another question? Just one more question. Sorry.
All right, there was a question in front of you as well. But one more question. Go
yeah,
ahead.
sure. Just one more question. Just have a question about Chinese market. Do you guys see a growing trend of crowdfunding in Chinese market, both in mainland China and in Hong Kong? The crowdfunding. 众筹. Sorry, I'm speaking Chinese. I can speak
actually,
Cantonese,
it's
but
not
yeah.
like that.
No.
There's some kind of promotion more than a real investment gathering. Yeah, that's not.
There was a question. Yeah, right in front. Yeah.
I just have a question from the perspective of production, because especially a lot of the discourse up here has been about like shorter segments of content, but where we're used to producing feature-length film in the past, where we've relied heavily on pre-selling international distribution. Now we're faced with a changing model where if we pre-sold to Netflix, for instance, they want worldwide rights. And that really poses these difficult questions where whilst we're trying to wrap our heads around new and emerging technologies, we're also trying to wrap our heads around how to actually monetize our production, because we rely heavily on those contracts to actually fund, and cover the cost of our budget in the first instance to even get the thing made. And we're also in a position perhaps of a little less power, where in the past distributors might, kind of negotiate between a range of buyers and negotiate best possible price for a particular region. Now we're looking at almost like this monopolized kind of distribution from one platform. So I wonder if you have any thoughts about this kind of back end of production and how the monetizing or acquiring of investments rather than going to just like, one platform, how that's going to change and what to look for.
You're absolutely right. It's a difficult conundrum that producers are in right now, particularly when you're dealing with kind of mega companies that have footprints in worldwide territories. So I think the only real opportunities there are outside of sort of if you're working within traditional means. So outside of going non-traditional funding routes, it is about working with your partners to come up with unique and creative windowing strategies. That's really the only way that there's still, as Duncan did point out, people are still watching on traditional means, and so there's still opportunities for. And I know it's difficult because I know that some of these companies are trying to buy out those traditional windows, but there is still opportunities for multiple windows. I know it's not the perfect answer, and I'm not sure that anybody has the perfect answer right now because it's so new to all of us. But I think it is important that it's a conversation that I have all the time, sort of from a buying perspective, which is, no, I'm not going to pay you, what somebody else would pay you for worldwide rights. You need to be carving up all the territories, and we all need to be kind of dealing with or looking at ourselves individually. Otherwise, how's anybody ever going to compete? So I wish I had a better answer for you. The only thing I can think of is private funding, non-traditional ways of funding, and trying to come up with creative windowing opportunities.
Isn't this where Indiegogo comes in, though?
Well, there you go. Non-traditional means.
Yeah, we actually, you might be interested in this. We're going to be talking about MCNs and MPNs at 4:45. So multi-platform networks and multi-channel networks. I think there might be some interesting conversation that maybe not the full answers to your questions, but I think those guests might actually have some more suggestions.
Because I think Indiegogo is fine if you're looking at budgets between like $1 and $2 or $3 million, but when you're talking about independent film that's between 5 and 20, it's in a slightly different bucket.
Just a real quick comment on that. Seldom is it that independent film comes from one financing source. So though we're seeing films that are budgeted 5 to 8 range that are coming in for 25% of their budget, and so or even 10% or whatever. But again, yeah, that's the doors are opening beyond the $250,000 indie micro indie budget.
One thing I wanted to add, just sort of going to my first slide, we spent a lot of time talking about short form, and there's reasons for that. However, in 2015, of all the minutes of video, cinema, internet, YouTube, everything seen on the planet, less than 2.5% will be under 10 minutes in length. So traditional long form. The small stuff is growing, and it's growing faster, but it's growing off of a tiny, tiny base. Long form continues to be the overwhelming majority.
Okay, I'll just say one thing, just for what it's worth. At least for what I've purchased in terms of our launch period, 80% more, 85% is long form content, whether it's television or feature film. But I would say even more, 90% is long form content.
There is hope. One more question? I think we only have time for one more. Yeah, go ahead. If you could just wait for the mic because we're recording the questions.
Hi, this question is for Marnie and Show Me. I'm just wondering what sort of audience benchmarks you plan to use to determine successes of some of the content that you purchase, and if you plan to share any of those analytics with with the public or with advertisers who might be interested in placing ads on the future seasons.
It's an excellent question. Obviously, we've got a number of data points that we're going to be looking at, both internally looking and externally looking. So how people are not only interacting with our content, but our UI, how they're getting there, how many clicks, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be looking at rankers based on genre, based on content type, based on studio, based on all of that. And yes, unlike others, we will make some of that information available, particularly to our content provider partners. With respect to advertisers, it's a good question. I don't know that we've kind of figured that out yet. But, I'm a bit, as I said earlier, look, I come from a traditional programming content background, and I'm a very big believer that the best programmers out there are kind of 50% art, 50% science. So I think it's certainly the data that we collect is going to be really important, but it's not going to take away from the decisions that I make from my gut. And you can't kind of share that, right? It is what it is. But yes, we will be gathering the information, and presumably we will be sharing some of it.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. Do we have time for one? No? Okay. Yeah, final question. Absolute final question.
Needs to be quick.
Yeah, make it a good one. No pressure.
Duncan? Yeah?
Cord cutters in Canada, which is almost nothing. But surely cord nevers have to be a big issue. And Marnie, especially, I guess that affects you at
I can answer that in 12 seconds. The penetration rate of cable in both Canada and the United States is falling to 2.5–3% per year as people who are young and moving out are not getting cable for the first time or ever. However, all the stories, 20, 30, 40% of North Americans plan on cutting the cord in the next 12 months. Those are complete nonsense. That's just the point I'm trying to make.
In some ways, we don't have a choice, really, in this country, right? If you want content, traditional television content. But that's a whole nother That's a whole nother discussion. But Marnie, how does that affect you at Show Me? Are you worried about that?
Not at all. I mean, I think Show Me's a complementary service, and that's certainly how we've built it. So you just sort of made a comment about the fact that if you want to get traditional television, and I'm talking about traditional entertainment. I'm not talking about news and sports, but traditional entertainment. Show Me's designed to be able to give you that, to give you past seasons of all your favorite shows, and designed to be complementary with a linear channel or, for example, to be able to watch a current season on a linear channel and catch up on all the prior seasons with Show Me. But it's not just going to be kind of, Rogers and Shaw content per se. There's also independent content that I look for, and that we will have the first window on. So it does give you an opportunity to it's complimentary, but it gives you an opportunity to see some of your favorite shows or your favorite content in a non-traditional way.
And I think that is all we have time for. So Cole Needham, Mark Hofstadter, Marnie Schulman, Duncan Stewart, and Abby Kwong, thank you so much. Amazing talk.